Robin Williams, the most beloved comedian on the planet, spent his final year watching his own mind disappear, and not a single doctor could tell him why. Robin Williams had spent 4 decades making the entire world laugh. He could walk into any room and completely transform it. Then in 2013, everything began breaking down. His memory, his thoughts, his ability to recognize himself. Doctors diagnosed Parkinson's disease. He spent his final year fighting something that had no correct name. On August 11, 2014, he died at age 63. His autopsy revealed the truth. His brain had been consumed by Lewy body dementia. Every doctor he saw had missed it completely. He never once got the right answer. Richard Pryor, a comedian so devoted to making people laugh that he poured rum over himself, set himself on fire, and ran down a public street in flames. 2 years later, he turned it into his greatest performance. On June 9, 1980, Richard Pryor had been freebasing cocaine alone at his California home for several days. In a drug-induced haze, he poured 151 proof rum over his entire body and ignited himself. He ran half a mile down Parthenia Street, completely on fire before anyone stopped him. Third-degree burns covered more than half his body. Doctors said he nearly died 3 times during recovery. Then he walked on stage in 1982 and made the whole world laugh about it. Phil Hartman, the man his SNL colleagues called the Glue, the comedian who held the whole show together for 9 seasons, was shot 3 times in his sleep by the one person he trusted completely. Phil Hartman was the backbone of Saturday Night Live through the late 1980s and early 1990s. Off-camera, his marriage to Bryn Omdahl was collapsing under the weight of her addiction. On May 28, 1998, Bryn came home drunk and cocaine-fueled at 3 a.m., walked into their bedroom, and shot Phil 3 times in the head while he slept. She confessed to a friend, returned home, and shot herself. Their 2 children, aged 9 and 6, woke up to both parents dead. Lenny Bruce, a comedian, arrested, convicted, and systematically destroyed by his own government for saying words on a stage. They issued a formal apology 37 years after burying him. Lenny Bruce was the first comedian in America to speak honestly about race, religion, politics, and sexuality on stage. The government called it obscenity. He was arrested across multiple American cities, convicted in New York in 1964, banned from venues, stripped of his passport, and blacklisted by promoters everywhere. His income collapsed completely. His drug addiction consumed whatever was left. On August 3, 1966, he was found naked and dead on his bathroom floor from a morphine overdose at age 40. New York pardoned him in 2003. He had been dead for 37 years. Sam Kinison, the most volcanic comedian of his generation, was pulled from a car wreck without a visible scratch, then held a quiet conversation with someone nobody else could see, and never finished it. Sam Kinison was a former preacher who turned his screaming sermons into the most electrifying stand-up act in America. On April 10, 1992, a drunk 17-year-old driver hit his car head-on in California. Witnesses pulled Kinison from the wreckage. He appeared completely uninjured. Then he began speaking quietly to someone invisible, saying, "I don't want to die," then pausing, then "Why?" Then "Okay, okay, okay." His brother watched every word. The autopsy revealed his spine had been dislocated and his aorta torn completely apart. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle, a man who made the whole world laugh, was accused, tried 3 times, formally apologized to by his own jury. Roscoe Arbuckle was the biggest comedy star on the planet in 1921, more popular than Charlie Chaplin at his peak, earning $1 million a year, beloved by millions across the world. Then a woman named Virginia Rapp died at a party he hosted in San Francisco, and the entire American press decided he was responsible. 3 separate criminal trials followed. He was acquitted in every single one. The 3rd jury took just 6 minutes to deliberate and wrote a formal written apology stating the case should never have been brought. Hollywood banned him anyway. He spent the rest of his life broken, forgotten, and blacklisted. On June 29, 1933, the very night he finally signed a new film contract, Roscoe Arbuckle died of a heart attack in his sleep. He was 46 years old. Tommy Cooper, a man who spent his entire life making people laugh, died on live television in front of 15 million people, and every single one of them laughed while it happened. Tommy Cooper was the most beloved comedy magician in Britain, a giant of a man whose tricks always failed on purpose, and whose laugh was more famous than any joke he ever told. On April 15, 1984, he walked out onto the stage of Her Majesty's Theatre in London during a live television broadcast. Mid-performance, he suddenly slumped and collapsed. The entire studio audience burst into laughter, assuming it was another brilliantly timed bit of physical comedy. It was not. Tommy Cooper was dying on the stage in front of them, He was taken backstage and pronounced dead from a massive heart attack. He was 63 years old. Freddie Prinze, the brightest young comedian in America, put a gun to his head at 22 years old with his manager sitting 3 feet away. Freddie Prinze had gone from performing in New York comedy clubs to starring in his own NBC television show in less than 2 years. He was 22 years old and the most famous Latino entertainer in America. Behind the fame, his personal life was collapsing. A failing marriage, a growing addiction to Quaaludes, and a depression nobody around him took seriously enough. On January 28, 1977, his business manager Marvin Snyder came to his apartment to cheer him up. Freddie told him he was going to kill himself. Then he put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger with Snyder watching. He was taken off life support 33 hours later. He was 22 years old. Joe E. Louis. The most popular nightclub comedian in Chicago left Al Capone's club for a better contract, and 3 men with hunting knives came to his hotel room to explain why that was a mistake. Joe E. Louis was the hottest act in Chicago in 1927, earning $600 a week performing at the Green Mill, Al Capone's favorite nightclub. When a competing club offered him more money, Louis took it. Machine Gun Jack McGurn, Capone's enforcer, sent 3 men to Louis's hotel room at the Commonwealth Hotel on November 8, 1927. They stabbed him repeatedly and slashed his throat so severely his vocal cords were nearly destroyed. They left him for dead on the floor. He survived. He could barely speak for months. His singing career was finished forever. So he reinvented himself completely as a stand-up comedian and became even more famous. Incognito. A comedian looked his audience directly in the eye, told them to imagine him dying on stage in front of them, then sat down and did exactly that, while they kept laughing for 4 straight minutes. Incognito was a veteran British stand-up performing at a small venue in Bicester, England on April 11, 2019. During his set, he had been joking about strokes and heart attacks. He looked at the audience and said, "Imagine if I died in front of you lot." Minutes later, he slumped back in his chair on stage and stopped moving. The audience continued laughing, assuming the silence was the setup for a punchline. 4 minutes passed before anyone realized something was wrong. By the time emergency services arrived, Incognito was already gone. He was 60 years old. He had just told them exactly what was about to happen. Charles Rocket, a man who once made America laugh every Saturday night, was found alone in a field near his home with his throat cut, and the world that had forgotten him barely noticed he was gone. Charles Rocket was an SNL cast member in the 1980 to 1981 season, one of the most chaotic and troubled years in the show's entire history. His career never fully recovered after he was fired. He worked steadily in television and film for the next 2 decades, appearing in Dumb and Dumber and Hocus Pocus, but the fame never returned. On October 7, 2005, he was found dead in a field on his own Connecticut property with his throat cut by a straight razor. He was 56 years old. The medical examiner ruled it suicide. The man who had once stood on the most famous comedy stage in America died completely alone in an open field. Mitch Hedberg, one of the most beloved comedians of his generation, was found dead alone in a hotel room, and when the news broke, the entire world assumed it was an April Fool's joke. Mitch Hedberg was one of the most original stand-up voices of his generation, a soft-spoken surrealist whose one-liners had audiences completely helpless with laughter. Behind the stage persona, he had been battling addiction to heroin and cocaine for years, a struggle he spoke about openly and honestly. On March 30, 2005, he was found dead in his New Jersey hotel room from a combined cocaine and heroin overdose. He was 37 years old. Because news of his death was not released until April 1st the following Monday, thousands of his fans assumed it was a joke. It was not. One of the most genuinely original comedic voices of his entire generation was simply gone.